Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight, March 7th, 2023, the first in our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance budget workshops. I ask that I call our meeting to order, and Diane, did you want to call your board to order?
Yes, please. This is Diane Del Rosso, the Chair of the Board of Finance for Hebron, and I will also call to order the Hebron Board of Finance.
Okay. I ask that we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next section is our public comment. This section is the agenda is reserved for people in attendance who wish to briefly address the board. The board requests that comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. The other thing I am asking that we would only ask for comments that are revolving around the budget, budget related material that we're going to be talking about. So anyone wishing to make any comments concerning the budget, if you would please type your name in the chat box and you will be recognized.
Terry McManus has a public comment.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a little bit more formal than what I usually do. So speaking to and against the budgeting of any more funds for open space land acquisition until a comprehensive land use and maintenance plan is produced with an accurate assessment of how much this plan will cost, and a review of public priorities is concluded as to the wisdom of continuing to purchase land in order to keep it from development, including development that the town might need. As to the maintenance plan, I've had the opportunity to look at only a few of our properties, and to be honest with you, they're beautiful. I'm really impressed. A lot of work has gone into this. But some things I noticed were most of the parcels I viewed were not identified, so I basically had to use a GPS to find them. Some of them are chained off. Some are starting to show the effects of emerald ash borer. Some are showing increased signs of maple dieback. Some are showing the effects of increased winds that we've been experiencing. Many are showing signs of invasive species with the strangling of trees by vines. One I saw has a decaying footbridge just adjacent to a pond in the middle of a neighborhood of families. All of the above does not kill the charm of these open spaces, but indicate that maintenance is needed. And this maintenance is not hard to accomplish, but will be costly. And the citizens of town need to know that maintenance is happening and how much it is costing us. Not performing maintenance, I believe, is negligent and leaves the town liable to lawsuits in case someone were to be hurt. As to the review I mentioned, I'm going to give an example, and I'm really confused and by my lack of knowledge. So there's caveats on this one. In December 2018, map block lot 19-24, 66 acres, was purchased by the town of Hebron for $390,000. A few months later, a referendum for the purchase of the Horton property passed, and an area previously intended for mixed use was declared open space, and the majority of the rest was to be used for the PWF. We all know of recent discussions and are aware of the conundrum that we find ourselves in. Alternative sites have been researched diligently by a lot of people, and you've all heard those results. It's tough pickings out there. But none of our previously purchased open space properties were considered due to the constraints of open space puts on further development. The first site I mentioned above, less than a mile from our current facility, is not
3 minutes are up, Mr. McManus. Please wrap up.
is not wetlands and from a layperson's point of view, suitable for such a facility. And this one site is not the only one that may be suitable. Just quickly, these are opinions of a citizen, and I know I don't know near as much as I should. But purchasing space to not develop on the basis of continuing speed that we're doing it, I think is unwise. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else at this time?
Looks like that's it for now.
Okay. Seeing none. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda would be the CIP budget presentation, which I will gladly present. Donna, bring that up. Thank you, Donna. So here you have the proposed.
Did you just want to let everybody know in their books, just in case, where they would find that?
It should be a standalone. Whereabouts in the book would it be, Donna?
That is not in their books. They don't have it yet. It wasn't ready when the books went out. We
Okay.
just finished it yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there you have it, hot off the press.
That's why I can't find it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So hopefully, so we'll go through this tonight on the screen. Hopefully that's permittable by everybody,
Yeah.
and then we'll send it out. So tonight, I think it's pretty straightforward. So we'll go through it and then you guys let me know. So here you have the first slide. I apologize if you haven't seen it in advance. Like you said, we're just wrapping things up. So it's the town manager's recommended CIP budget today, March 7th, by the town manager. So the CIP information, this is very important, this first line, to understand what we did. So the total funding request for 2023-24 was $3,447,722. The CIP projects that we approved for ARPA funding was the elementary school gym floor to try to move that along. That was $264,800. I just want to make a little caveat that you won't see the school roof in here because we dealt with the state and the original request was $500,000 from the school. I talked to the superintendent. That money would have just been sitting there. With everything we have to do, we wouldn't have been ready for this budget season. So they, or at least he, totally agreed that we pushed it out a year. And the reason being, we just didn't want that money sitting in CIP. Next up, we have the CIP recommendations for the 2023-24 budget. And it's a priority of the projects. So I know it looks like it's heavily weighed for public works, but the first one has always been road resurfacing and road improvements. That benefits everybody. That's always number one. That's our largest fixed asset. So the request from the public works director was much higher than that. I trimmed it down to $320,930. Next thing we've been talking about for a while, we plugged in the engineering design for the public works at $245,000. And we'll show you the backup when we get into that. We're looking to replace a truck number 52, which is a 2007 for $226,956. Trucks and equipment have gone out of sight. It's crazy what we have to pay. This is the truck that takes care of the lake, that area down there. It's 4-wheel drive. It's larger than a mason dump, so it's kind of a specialty piece of equipment. It has serviced us well, but it's time to replace it. And we'll show you pictures of that as we go through this. Next up is number 4, is replace the Rescue 110 with a rescue pumper. The first year funding, he was looking for $300,000. I reduced that down to $100,000. We're going to work together to try to get grants to fund that, or possibly lease purchase. That could save us some money with our credit rating. We could get a good rate, but The total of that truck is $900,000. So once again, apparatus and public works vehicles are out of sight. Jones Street culvert replacement, first year funding, $55,000. This is due to if we get a grant, which we've applied for. If we get that, you don't pave a new road over old culverts. So hopefully if we get that grant, we're gonna replace that, and we need to put this in there now. So that's why it's there. So the total recommended CIP budget is $947,886. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. So we always have the CIP revenue recommendations, the balance from previous appropriations. You can see what happened in 22-23 was 4,452. And the proposed 2023-24 is 27,896. There's our normal LoSiP funding. It's down a little bit from 77,501 to 68,830. Funding from other sources, public safety fund, we have an amortization for cars and vehicles for SROs at RAM. That's where this money comes from. Then we have interest on that account, which is $1,000. And then the general fund contribution, which we're looking for, is $838,760. Total revenues is $947,886. And here below, the completed projects, large dump truck. This is where the revenue came from, $2,646. The mini excavator, which was completed with $750 return, $750. And then the 2005 Kenworth roll-off, we sold it. It was $24,500 for a total of $27,896. So once again, a little bit of history for anybody that's new. Hebron road maintenance, resurfacing, and repair. We have 80 miles of road, which is worth in our pavement management inventory, $34 million. Continuing with timely maintenance is more cost effective than deferring it until deterioration where you have to do a total reclamation. Safer roads to travel, quicker emergency response, including snow, more comfortable ride, less wear on vehicles, efficient, economical preservation of our largest town asset. So even though it's 80 miles of road, you got to double that. So it's 160 lane miles that we take care of. Next up is engineering and design for the public works facility. This is no secret. Fund design and engineering for the public works facility. The BL companies gave us a price of $69,800. And then Nathan L. Jacobson proposal of survey and engineering designs was $175,000. So we plugged this into the budget. Follow up on the small dump truck. As I spoke earlier, this is replacing a 2007 GMC dump truck. Due to its age, it's got almost 60,000 miles on it. You can see the back is pretty well rusted. The truck has done a great job, but during snow operations, you have to have dependable vehicles, and it's time to replace this truck. The chief has supplied us with these replacing the Rescue 110 with a rescue pumper. Like I said, you can see the total funding request is $900,000. We're hoping to get that funded through grants. We're going to work diligently to try to do that, or at least some creative lease financing. So this will replace Rescue 110 with a combination rescue pumper, which enhances service and better services the town needs. So you're getting two pieces of apparatus to a scene with one vehicle with less personnel. So this is not only Hebron, this has been going on in surrounding towns around us. They've bought a couple vehicles in our neighboring towns. So I already mentioned the potential for the alternative financing options. To explain a little bit further, the Jones Street culvert replacement. This replaced 2 culverts due to age. First year funding will complete 1. Jones Street drainage, lending is needed to repair 2 culvert sections. Corrugated metal pipe, one is 65 feet long with a 36-inch diameter. The other is 40 feet long and 30-inch in diameter concrete. That is deep. It's a deep road cut. It is more cost effective to reline both culverts or both culvert crossings. Jones Street reconstruction was part of the TIP grant application that we sent to CROG, and we have a pretty good chance of getting this. We've been doing very well for Hebron in getting these grants. So, as a formality, and here we are tonight to look at the 5-year plan, which we have to do. You can see what the items are. You see the town manager's recommendation. $320,930. Townwide road subtotal $320. The grant funding $226,956. The Jones Street culvert. And down the bottom, the engineering design for $245,000 for the public works. So the total is $526,956. Then you can see the out years, which we always do, but they're subject to change. You have the 24-25 year. That total is $783,262. 25-26, $704. 26-27, $279,965. 27-28, which is starting to get out a little bit, $288,364. And then 28-29 is $1,009,715. So under the 5-year plan, you can see with the Board of Education, the Gilead School roof restoration study, you can see the $450 there. Hebron Elementary School roof at $160. We're doing the gym floor with ARPA. And they're looking at air handlers and VRF integrated at Hebron Elementary School. Same thing at Gilead Hill School. Air conditioning and heating, you can see what the cost is there. Both schools. Backup generator. Parking is pushed out to 25-26. And then they have some other projects, the glass brick wall to window replacement, Gilead Hill School, the glass brick wall to window replacement, Hebron Elementary School, which is pushed out to 26-27. Then you have the fire department coming back at us with the rescue pumper. He's looking to replace the chief's vehicle, and then all of a sudden the ambulance is going to kick in 26-27. Moving right along to the recreation department, you can see what the town manager recommended for 24-25. They just put this in here for a track of snow machines. So far, so good with the one we have, but at some point in time that might need to be replaced as we continue to add sidewalks. We're working on going out to bid for the Wall Street sidewalk. Worked on that today. Veterans Memorial Park baseball field, they're looking for lighting. You'll hear more about that at the Selectmen's meeting on the 16th of March. They're looking for outbuilding upgrades for $100,000. Burnt Hill Playscape pushed out a year, 25-26. And then again, 26-27. Pond dredging, this is at the Raymond Brook Park, that pond that's next to the Church of the Holy Family. We got to dredge that out at some point. So they plugged $100,000 in to do that. And then Grayville upgrades pushed out to 27-28 for $75,000, along with Douglas Library parking lot paving, $173,919. We pushed that out too. With all the construction that's going to be going on there with the walkable bridge and the roof and everything else, we pushed that out. So this is an important slide for people that are new. This is a CIP historical funding, and you can see the red line that shows, pretty much the percentage of it. And then you can see down the bottom, the years 13, 14, right up to 2023, 24, and you can see that line down below. We got in trouble back in 17, 18, we had to bump it up. But at the very bottom, you can see the CIP funding goal. Back in the day, after 20 years of doing CIP myself, it was always, we do not have a sinking fund in Hebron. A lot of towns have a sinking fund. You just put, what that is a certain amount of money you put away for rolling stock. We do not do that here. But the goal was, if we weren't gonna do that, that we should have at least 5% of the total town budget put away for this type of purchasing. So you can see where the line is. Even this year, we're at 2.30%. Very important to recognize that, especially with the inflation and the cost of, vehicles and everything going up, materials. So that's it. So questions?
Any questions, anyone?
Ask a question, please.
Sure, please.
Andy, Mike McCormick, how are you?
Good, Mike?
Question on the CIP projected projects with respect to truck 52.
Yes,
Did we purchase that truck new in 2007?
we did.
Okay. So that's about 15 years, and you said it has about 60,000 miles, so it gets used about 4,000 miles a year. That
I'm
fair?
believing, I'm going along with you, yes.
Okay. And has it been serviced at all? Like, have there been any service issues with it, or just rusting?
We service all the vehicles regularly.
Okay, but no major repairs or anything like that. That's what I guess what I'm asking.
Andy, you want me to cut in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you take a close look at this truck, both the structure and the skin of the truck are completely rusting away. The truck's falling apart standing there. The truck does not put a lot of miles on. It plows around the lake pretty much exclusively. And in the summer months, it's used for small paving operations.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems with this truck is we can't get parts. We're sending away to like vintage warehouse dealers. One of them's in Ohio, another one's in Atlanta. And when we do that, we're usually waiting a month and a half for parts. And every time we do that, the truck sits for a month. So it's an outdated truck. Unfortunately, it's up over $220,000 to replace it because that's what trucks are going for now. And this is a small truck, and we're not equipping this the way we do the other trucks. We're not putting the all-season body on it. This is going to have the same slide-in sander it has. So it's not going to be a built-up truck. It's just, that's what they go for. So I hope that helps you.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Peter, I know you had a question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Andy, just you had noted in the slide about the ARPA funds being used to address the school gym floor need within the sort of this normal CIP funding. In the original ask of about $3.5 million from the department chairs, were any other items were any other items asked for that were subsequently addressed through ARPA funding?
Donna, do we have a slide that depicts that, or do we have a way to see if we fulfilled any other requests with the ARPA funds that were originally CIP requests? There's two requests. We have the 75,000 and up, and then you'll see we have the 10,000 to 75,000. I know there's more in that request that were filled, I think, with ARPA than the 70.
I remember the list was, I just didn't pull the list of it. Just as you were going through it, I was wondering if there was more in there as an offset, or those were on top of the original ask as sort of enhancements to the original 3.44 million or whatever. I'm sorry, it was, I don't remember the exact number, but just under 3.5 million.
I have to defer to my guru in my office, which is Donna.
For
Okay.
this next year's CIP request, the only one is the gym floor. There were no other new CIP requests other than the ones that
Okay.
we took care of last year, where there were several projects that we were able to take out of CIP last year and fund through ARPA. And as Andy said, there are a few items in the capital projects, 10,000 to 75,000, that we're going to recommend funding through ARPA for next year also.
Thank you, Don.
Mel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not sure if this is a question for Andy or for Kevin, but looking at the amount of money put aside for the roads. A couple of years ago, I know we purchased some software. We also, when we bonded for the sewers, I think we also bonded to catch up on some paving. I'm not sure if that was roads or just parking lots, but is the money that we've put up going to keep us on track to maintain the roads at the I guess based on the number of years between each servicing of the roads, or are we going to still keep falling behind?
Can I answer that?
I'll jump in quick, then I'll turn it over to you, Kevin. So, great
Okay.
question, Mel. So we did catch up on some projects, some roads, and then, of course, mostly more important, the parking lots for the fire stations and then the schools. One of the things that we're doing, and Kevin will tell you what he actually requested for road monies, and I cut it way down to this number. But one of the things we're doing is we keep going after grants like the one we got for Martin Road, which is almost $4 million, which is also helping us, offset what the taxpayers of Hebron have to pay to keep us into that pavement condition inventory, which is you're referring to, the road study. But other than that, we're using that to offset, and we could always use more money, but we're trying to be cognizant of the budget. But with that being said, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Hey, Mel, I don't know if you remember, back in 2019, we had VHB Engineering come in and do a pavement analysis for us.
Right.
At that time, their recommendation was to put out a $2.5 million bond and $450,000 a year, and then another $1 million a year for the first 3 years. And that was just to get us to keep an average PCI, the pavement condition index, of 76, which is about where we are now. I think we're at 77. So when we're only funding this at 300 something, we're falling behind is what we're doing.
Okay.
But, we can only do what we have money for. As Andy said, we're trying to get whatever grants we can. We're not assured we're going to get them, but we're trying for them. That bond money that we did get, besides all the parking lots that we did for the schools and the firehouse, we did a lot of our major roads. We did East Street, we did West Street. I've got a whole list here somewhere. Anyhow, we did quite a few of the major roads. We ran out of money when it came. We finished Burroughs Hill, wanted to continue on to Jones Street. We ran out of money because over the winter, Hoadley Road fell apart, and I had to take the money and pave that road. So this year, with the money that we have designated, we started Jan Drive last year, which is a small subdivision up the north end of town. And I only had enough money to pave half of it. So I want to finish that when the new budget year starts, and Carolyn Drive is one of the side roads off of it. And that's pretty much going to use up most of what we have in the budget. If there's anything left, I'd like to go over to Hope Valley and at least get started on that. The other road in that subdivision is Laura Drive, but there's some major drainage issues there that have to be repaired. So that's going to be a extensive project. So hopefully the following year we can get into that one. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Andy. I think the issue is we have a plan. We just don't have the dollars to cover it at this point. Thank you.
Next would be Janet and then Diane.
Hi, my question is concerning the 100,000 for the new fire engine. What would be the repercussions if we move that to the next year, or if we got a grant, we took the money we needed from the town piece out of the unassigned funds balance? I'm just trying to think out of the box here.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So even if we were to fund that truck today, as most people in the industry know, it's gonna take 2 to 3 years to get that thing delivered. So here we are throwing $100,000 at a $900,000 fire truck. That's just to get the ball rolling, and we're gonna do our diligence to try to get some creative financing, grant monies, or whatever, but we wanna at least get it into the queue. So I don't think it's just sitting there, gonna get stale. This shows that the town's making a commitment towards it, and that could be seed money if we get a decent rate on a lease purchase. At least shows that we're committed. So that was the thought process behind putting $100,000 into a $900,000 request. If we wait and we don't have any money, then we would have to wait another whole year, and then the truck is still 2 to 3 years out by the time it gets built and delivered.
So if we lease, are you saying that we could get one sooner?
Well, I think if we lease, you have to have some sort of seed money for a down payment. So that's the reason we plugged 100,000 in versus the $300,000 he was looking for.
Okay.
Diane?
But if we-
Diane? DeRosa? Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry, I just want to make sure Janet's done.
I guess my question was, if we didn't have, say we didn't fund that, but something came up during the year, could we use the unassigned fund balance money towards it? Or is that something you just can't use?
I think it's a good question. I think it's a good question. I think that would be possible, but normally when you're buying, this is what a CIP capital improvement project would be, especially a $900,000 total.
Right.
Like I said, I don't mean to sound like a, broken record, but putting $100,000 and gives me the commitment to go out and negotiate with lease purchasing or grants. I think anything's possible, Jim. And I think I could come back to the town and say, all right, we found this deal. We got to come up with this. That would be an ask of the board, Selectmen Board of Finance. I think it's an appropriate question. I think we could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm trying to find money anywhere.
I get it. And I'm just trying to keep these large purchases at least in the,
Yeah.
in the CIP plan. But hey, listen, if you got to think outside the box, I get it.
Yeah, thank you very
Elaine
much,
has a
Andy.
follow-up comment, I think.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Elaine.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
please.
if I could just interject
Please.
quickly, in regards directly to Janet's question, to take it from fund balance, that would have to be in the form of a supplemental appropriation.
Okay.
So if you were to fund it that way, that's how it would have to be done.
So that's what I figured. That's what I'm saying. It's just more of a process thing than I understand we need a fire engine. That's not the question. It was just more ways that we could fund it. Thank you very much.
Diane?
Thank you, Chairman Larson. I think on some later slides, there were some projects that were that I saw. Let me see if I made notes on it. I think there was a Burnt Hill Playscape for 100,000, and there was some veterans. Okay, yep, Burnt Hill Playscape. Oh, that is for. Aha, that's out a couple of years. I see
here,
that now.
yes.
Thank you. And so that's not for this year.
No.
I know that we had slated a lot of Playscape replacements with the ARPA funds. would we do Burnt Hill Park with ARPA funds, or do we need to spend that money before these years?
So to try to answer your question, there's two playscapes. One's for Veterans Park and approved through ARPA right now. And the second one
Yep.
would be for Gillian Hill School, which is approved right now. So we're working
Yep.
with companies trying to get those approved. The Burn Hill Park is not slated to be used for ARPA funds. That's slated to continue through the CIP 5-year plan. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that was,
I understand it's part of the 5-year plan because it's on the slide, but would we consider using ARPA funds, or are we out of ARPA funds at this point?
I think by the time we get to that, we're probably going to be pretty close.
Okay. It looks like Elaine wants a comment.
Yep.
Thank you, Elaine.
Hi. Yeah, if I may. So yeah, the ARPA funds are beginning to dry up on the approved projects, and they need to be completed by December 2024. So if this isn't slated for replacement until 25, 26, we'll need to be done with the ARPA funding.
Okay, and so let me just ask a question on what you said. Any project that's slated to be covered by ARPA, does it need to be completely installed and funded by December 31st of 2024?
I don't know the answer to that question, as the portal doesn't. So the federal government has had issues manning their portal for
Okay.
reporting, and the portal is not reopening until April 1st, but that's certainly a question I will pose at that time.
Oh my God, April 1st. Thank you.
Okay. Tiffany?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Along those same lines, I know ARPA funds are great because they represent a once in a lifetime opportunity to invest in a lot of different projects for the town. With the top 5 list we have here, Andy, with what you've proposed, I'm assuming road repair and an engineering study wouldn't be covered by ARPA, but what about the replacement of truck 52, or are we starting to run out of funds, to Elaine's point? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. It's my guess. I don't think I could ask the attorney, but I don't think the ARPA funds would cover replacement of the truck. I don't think that falls under the criteria of all the other projects that we saw get approved, but I could always check and get you an affirmative answer. I don't know that at this time.
I think that'd be good for all of us to understand, simply because I know that the selectmen, myself included, we've approved different expenditures for different types of vehicles, and it could be that that's because those are the only types of vehicles approved. But it might be helpful to understand that. And it also highlights why we have to really start now tracking how much has been spent, how much has been allocated, especially as we move closer to when we're, our time's up in terms of appropriating the funds. Thank you.
Yeah, I can counter with, and Donna can help me after I get done, but I know they have to be first responders. That's why it was okay to get the police cars. I'm not sure if the plow truck's considered a first responder. I would think not, but I'm not the authority on that.
Thank
Kevin?
Hey, Andy. I believe George Bush designated Public Works as a first responder a few years back.
Yeah, I know the classification under that, but as far as ARPA goes, like we were looking at the fire apparatus to do that, and because it didn't roll to every call, it wasn't considered a first responder. So, and Donna can help me with that. We went back and forth on that. But a police car did fit the venue, and like I said, I'm not trying to split hairs. I'd have to get the answer from somebody that deals with this a little higher than my pay grade. But my uneducated guess right now is I don't think that would fit. Not trying to belittle what you said, Kevin.
We can run it by the town attorney and get a definitive answer on that.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike?
Andy, just going back to your slide on the CIP 5-year plan, the projections for the, I guess it was the air conditioners and the air handler systems at the schools.
Yes.
There are 2 years where the amounts are equal. Is that because that would be a 2-year project with equal appropriations for each year, or is it just, what's the reason for that?
To be honest, Mike, the school gave us those numbers. I don't know where they
Okay.
got their quote from. We do
Okay.
have backup, but I'm thinking, and I'm hoping and praying that there's grant monies coming down the pipe for that. But Donna, do you have any backup for those requests?
I guess my question is for example, the 255,500, the first one, are they requesting 255,500 each of those 2 upcoming years, or it's just contingent on getting it in one of the years?
I'd have to look at
I'm
the
going to
backup.
look in,
Yeah, I'm thinking it's.
yes, there should be detail in the CIP section, the section number
Okay.
5 of your book. The Board of Education's requests are there, and their the amounts are
Okay,
there.
great. I'll
But I
look at that. Thank you.
do believe yep, you're welcome.
Dan Larson here. I think a lot of that also is going to be contingent on the facilities studies and what some of the engineers come up with. As far as I know, there have been no engineering studies done. Maybe Mel could help me out on this at either one of the schools concerning anything to do with the heating, air conditioning, air handling situation. Is that accurate, Mel?
Yeah, that is accurate, Dan. There also has not been any additional funding put forward towards the clean air in the schools project. The state received 151 applications prior to December 31st. Most were incomplete, so we have no idea what's even going to happen with those dollars. But those dollars will probably be used to fill whatever was or whatever is complete that they received that was due December 31st. And I specifically asked if there would be another wave of grant dollars, since this was such a stressed point from the federal government. And I was told, your guess is as good as mine. So, but. And by the way, we expect that it's going to be way more than $500,000 between the two schools for air conditioning. That's probably about half of it from the discussions we've had. Thank you.
Yeah. Andy, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Mel. And Mel's correct. I did have conversations with the superintendent, and they are very patiently waiting for the facility study. So great comment. That's exactly what they want to see, what comes out of that. And then the deadline to apply for that money Mel was talking about was ridiculous. If you didn't have something already in the queue, or already lined up or almost contracted, you were never going to meet that deadline, which I think they realized after the fact. So it was more of a feel-good thing. So we didn't really miss the boat, or the school didn't miss the boat. And like Mel's right, we're all hoping that they're going to realize that and revisit and do another round. But in their defense, that was when that time frame came out of what you had to have done. If you didn't have somebody already a plan sitting on your desk ready to go, you weren't going to meet that.
Yes, Donna, please.
I need to correct information I provided that was inaccurate. The Board of Education's requests are not in the detail in the CIP section. We only included the detail on projects that were recommended. So I can send out the Board of Education's CIP package to everyone so that you have that detail.
Okay.
And I do believe they included it in their package that they sent to us. So it may be in this Board of Education section in your budget book in the back.
Okay. I'm seeing a sign for a raised hand, but I don't know who.
Oh, it's me.
It's Diane.
Oh, okay.
So I have a
Please go
couple
ahead.
more questions. Sorry. Going to the top 5. You mentioned, Andy, to replace Rescue 110, 100,000 is the first year funding. But right now, to replace that truck, it would be 900,000. So probably by the time we have enough money to replace it, it's going to be way more than that, right?
Well, I want to be honest, yes and no. I think I'm trying to tell the chief that we have to do our due diligence and get grants to fund it. Other towns around us have done that.
Okay.
Mansfield, Coventry. So because it's such a high ticket item, I'm suggesting with our great AAA bond rating, with our undesignated fund balance where it is, that we can get a really low lease and possibly do something, or try to get some grants to cover 90% of that cost. But it's been my past experience with my years doing this that you got to have some seed money to do anything. And so
Okay.
the request was 300,000. I tried to do my due diligence and lower it down to 100,000, at least to give us a little bit of buying power or some lease purchase options to show that we're serious. Normally, if you're talking to a salesman, you don't have any money put away there. It's like you're like a tire kicker. I don't know if that makes any
Right.
sense or not. But.
So with the Jones Street culvert, that also says it's the first year of funding. Do you have an estimate of how much that will cost in total?
Well, there's 2 culverts. We funded one. If we get the grant, that'll cover that one culvert to do that job. And I think we can move forward. But Kevin, if you're there, you can jump in on that.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number in front of me. I believe the second culvert was about 32 or 35,000. The reason is we don't have to do the second one right away. It's so far under the road that waiting a year or 2 more isn't going to kill us. But the first one is already partially collapsing in the road. So I need to fix that one. Whether we get the grant or not, I really should fix that culvert. The problem is it's an oddball, it's diagonal, and it's about 65 feet long, and there's a structure at the other end. So if we tried to do that in-house, we'd end up closing Jones Street for about a week. And that's a major cut through. So I think that would be an issue. As it is, if we do this, we may end up closing the road for like a half a day or so.
Okay, but will the 55,000?
The total request for both culverts is $94,761.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. So that's for 2. Okay, thank you. And regarding truck 52, the 2007 that we were talking about before, the 226,956 is a request, and that would cover the entire purchase of a new truck. Could we partially fund it this year, half fund it this year, half next year, and wait a year?
I don't think it's going to make another year, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Every time it goes out now, we're crossing our fingers, hoping it's going to make it back.
And then the other issue is, like Kevin stated before, you can't, I don't know what's going on with the world today, but you can't get the parts. It never used to be that way, but it's changed.
Is there any
Dan,
part of that truck, like the sand in the back, that part that's in the dump part of the truck reusable, or is that
Yes,
something that goes with the truck?
No,
Yes.
great question, Diane. Kevin kind of stated that. So that stainless steel sander, we're going to reuse that. we're gonna just buy a new truck, but we're not looking to replace the sander. That's still very durable and very usable, so we're just looking to replace the truck. And unfortunately, like anything else, the cost of these trucks, it's a specialty truck. That's the only place we have the Hills. That's a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's a smaller truck than a large dump truck. But it served us very well. And like I said, we're gonna use the sander out of the back, but the truck itself the price is like almost double. It's crazy.
Yep. Thank you. That's it for me now. Danny, thank you.
You're welcome. This would be for Kevin, or knowing how the environment just, deteriorates these trucks. Are there any materials, or are they building any trucks that are more durable and longer lasting to the effects of the salt and the other harsh chemicals that are eating these things up?
Not that I know of, Dan. I've attended a Green Snow Pro class a couple of months ago, and it was discussed about new products and whether any were coming out. And any product that's used is based, even the brines are based with some kind of salt product, so that they can't get away from it. Not yet, anyhow. And the
Okay,
trucks, I haven't seen any built with anything else.
okay. And 15 or plus years out of a commercial cabin chassis, actually pretty good. Sadly, for that type of vehicle. So I totally understand that. Okay.
We can see what the salt does, because that truck is washed every time it goes out.
Okay, I ask if anybody has any other questions, please get it into the town staff. That way they can get the questions out to everybody. And again, just again to reiterate, because I haven't done this yet, I ask that everything, tries to go through either the chairs or the town staff. Just so that they don't get inundated with everybody asking, things from everybody. And I don't know, Andy, did you have any kind of a process, or Donna, on how you want people to submit questions or what have you before we go further?
No, I think you covered it. I think we're the ones that put the town budget together. So if you have questions on the town budget, if you go through your chairs, and the chairs are comfortable with that for the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, we'll do our best to answer them, unbiasedly. And then if you have questions of the schools or anything else, we'll submit them through the queue.
Does that sound fair to everyone? Okay. Okay. I think one of the other projects, if I'm not mistaken, that we did with ARPA funds was the bridge that we're doing from the library. Wasn't that originally slated with CIP, and we did that with the ARPA?
We got a steep grant for that.
Okay.
You're right, we did put some money towards it, but then we ended up getting a steep grant.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. No other questions on that. Andy, you're next.
I believe, I don't have an agenda in front of me. I know Donna's busy, but I
Open
think
space.
the next thing is open space, and I think there's a gentleman by the name of Brian O'Connell in the queue, along with some of his members that are gonna speak to that.
Good evening, everybody. If you can hear me well, nice to see you all, and good luck this year. I'm going to be going through the presentation. Thanks to Donna. I'm going to let you guys read some of it, and I'll be the color commentator, if you will. Open space right in front of you. There we are. Thank you. Been formed for quite a while. Town ordinance. Bottom line, when they laid this out, they covered what we're supposed to be doing and how to do it. The town could put up to 1/2 of 1 mil, into it and how we would go about procuring the land or recommending it through the powers that be are all identified in that process. All right, next one. Our members in front of you, members that have served the community for very a variety of different commissions, and I thank them all. It's great to work with everyone. Next. All right, these, just some of this stuff, if Terry's still out there, we'll answer some of your questions, Terry, but you can catch me offline too. We've got a few different committees, where first would be agriculture. These are reasons open space is an advisory board to the town, made up of members of the groups that you just saw and with various backgrounds. So first one, agriculture. We look at what soils are out there in Hebron. All of this has already been looked at. And if indeed down the road, a parcel of property was looking to change hands or something along those lines, we would have identified it as such, whether it would be something about farmland soils are on this property. It could be that there's a stream, etc. So these things are laid out, and agriculture is the first one. Resources, this is what I was talking about, and I've said it each year for the last, say, decade. Water's a big deal. And you hear about it across the country. We are blessed here in Hebron with the amount and the quality of the water. Open space planning, your planning and zoning, all of the different committees that work together in setting up how this community should function have basically protected the natural resources. And part of what we do is going to just dovetail with that. They could be wetlands, they could be forests or areas of special concern, as it talks about here. So this is a big deal, and we are indeed blessed with regards to what we have available here in our community. It's very diverse. Next one. Recreation, this is the third piece of the puzzle. Open space will look to purchase or preserve some land for the recreation uses, whether it's passive or active. Obviously, an active and passive would be the Burnt Hill Park, or the park in the center of town, or your airline trail. We also have many pieces that we've preserved for the other subcommittee reasons. And we always have a purpose for why we're going to go after it. And we would state such in the recommendations when we look to recommend a purchase of a piece of property or the preservation of a piece of property. All right, next one. Thank you. All right, we follow some guidelines, so we're not out there winging it. There's by any means, and all of these type of things are important, whether it's a small piece of property or a very large piece of property, where that's how the state of Connecticut would come into play. The acquisitions could be for estate planning or land planning. So we are not out there, just as a preference, I think Terry had mentioned earlier, we are not out there buying land to keep it from development. That is not our bailiwick. That is not what we're doing. We're doing it for other reasons, as I just discussed. The fact that would be a byproduct. If a piece of property came up to us and we ended up purchasing it because the owner didn't want to develop it, possibly, a byproduct would be that maybe we didn't have, X number of houses or X number of children going to the schools or whatnot, or resources or plow trucks we'd have to, use to. I'll cover it later, but there's a lot of different things that open space does. It's not just buying and saving land. These are, hopefully you got through this. This is, I call the squiggly line map. We stick with this. These are the areas that we would focus on, that we need to look at the potential for preserving land if indeed someone approaches us. Next. All right, and this just brings it together. It says, we're not out there winging it. We want to just try to do this and connect the blocks, if you will. Burn Hill Park was put together with a few different pieces, and for a reason. And not all of it's today. Some of it's for 40 or 50 years down the road. It's just that the time was right and it was available, and that's the long-term planning aspect of what open space looks to. And it's not, I know, like all of us here, well, we've been through the budget process, and we grind out just down to the nitty gritty of what dollars can be spent where. Long term, this is really thinking long term, in addition to obviously its current days, because you're spending taxpayer dollars. But this is a long term planning and what this community is going to look like forever. So next slide, please. Multiple uses. As I talked about with Burn Hill, you got passive, you got active. Airline Trail, it's a wonderful thing. It's not only just the airline trail, it connects brooks, allows people to connect communities. And we also are, Andy's a member, and myself and some other members of the town, we have the 12 town airline trail group, and they are looking at how do we connect these communities with the airline trail and the economic development that it could provide. Okay, so there's another use over and above. We work with the state. It may be something small we might offer to do this, just to get the ball rolling. For instance, the piece of property that abutted Gay City Park that the state purchased a handful of years ago now, give or take. It was something that we had identified. We watched. I saw an opportunity. You talk to the state. Another 300 acres or so has been, protected because it was the right fit. It abutted the partnership. The state of Connecticut stepped up, but it abutted a state park. It had some active farmland on it. So it checked all the boxes. And I'm hoping I'm kind of rushing through it because of the time limit, but these are the different pieces that we look at and identify as we work with the state or local individuals. All right, and this basically just touches what I just talked about. Next one, thank you. These are our priorities. We wanted to put that in to spell it out for you. I'll let you take a look through it. We have, so like I said a minute ago, we have some wonderful brooks, great water quality here in town, and that comes from all the regulations that we have in place. Landowners taking pride in, not dumping, and people actually paying heed to what the regulations state. And that provides for a great place to not only recreate, whether it's hiking, fishing, trout fishing here in town is a lot of fun and a great opportunity to get people involved. The airline trail connections, we've been trying to connect the airline trail to the center of town for the last 20 years, and we're getting close. I probably said that last year too. We're getting close. The open space process does not happen overnight. It's a planning process. It's the old envelope system, and that's going back to us asking the town to say we need to put some money in the envelope for the opportunity, if it presents itself, that we have some funds to look at, actually preserving a piece of property, that we're not, to use Andy's message a little while ago, we're not just kicking the tires. All right, we're out there looking, and we're serious about this, and we will always, and we do, incorporate grant applications. So next. Gateway scenic parcels. So, I mean, you close your eyes, you see what that means. You come into a certain area and you see a beautiful vista. You entered Hebron from Glastonbury coming down 94. You come down around the corner by the fish, the Foot Farms where they just replaced a culvert. That whole area, it's gorgeous. And if you threw in, like what they did up at the quarry, threw a bunch of McMansions in there, then so be it. It's not going to look the same ever again, and you can't get that back. So That's kind of what that means here. These are what we've done over the years. Thanks to all the people that sat in your chairs and the taxpayers for saying yes to the town budget. We've been able to put aside one way, shape, or form. Some were in donations. There's different ways that we acquired these pieces, but they are preserved currently to the total of 900 and some odd acres. Okay. The state also, this is what the state's done, and the latest, what I just talked to a little bit ago about the Frackia properties over by Gay City. Next. There's also development rights too. The latest was Mike Porter used it on his farm to keep that farm in farming. He had talked with Andy and I and Mike O'Leary back in the day, and he went all about it, and he wanted to preserve his farm. He didn't want to see it get bought and broken up and chewed up, and just what I said, you know, who knows what people are going to do with it. And he did that, and he did it really on his own. So kudos to Mike. The state has programs out there that can help landowners preserve. Mr. Ellis has used it as well on the Ellis's farm. Go ahead, that's okay, Don. So here's the scoop. People always ask how many acres. We had the Mohegan Land Trust back, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 years ago now. The town accepted that land. They were a not-for-profit land trust here in town, and the town became the steward for those acres, the development rights, and state, and what we've accomplished. We've got a great track record at a very reasonable cost, actually. Next, please. All right, percentages, or however you want to skin this cat. Private open space could be, what do you call it? Jones Street. Drawing a blank. What's the not-for-profit out there, Andy, on Easter Seals? Could be golf courses. So that's still a pretty big chunk.
Right.
Next, please. So this is, I tried to double check these numbers. Nothing's really changed lately. But if you took a chunk of property, I'll just give a hypothetical next to Gay City, and if the beneficiaries of that, those people that passed away, and if they wanted to put houses up there, and that's their prerogative, they wanted to go through that process, God bless them. You know, you might have had another 150 kids in town, and that's where the $1.16 at least. It costs. You talked about what Kevin has to spend on a truck, or the fire department needs for apparatus. All of the things that we do as a community to make it a safe and enjoyable place for our residents to live, it costs money. Open space, on the other hand, and the next, and a very light use industrial would be something along these lines, about 35 cents on the dollar cost to every dollar they bring in. So it does have a financial impact. I know it's hard to wrap your head around, but it is there, especially in tough budget years. It's valid. Next, please. Just a touch and base. We didn't talk about the $500,000. That's what we could get up to. I don't even know what a mill is this year, but I'm sure it's probably 700,000 or 800,000, or what it used to be, somewhere in that ballpark. So you know what, the town, I'll say this, the town of Hebron and the people and the voters have been very good, and they've looked long term, and I think relied upon you and the open space group and all the people that could have an impact to say, you know what, you got this. We know you're going to put aside a few dollars for this, and people are going to be prudent in how they spend that money. And I can probably say we have. We've been very careful about it, going back to the original group of open space. Next, please. All right, here's some of your benefits. We added the tourism piece because that's coming down the pike. These are all valid. I mean, these are really valid. Through COVID, you know that the airline trail parking lots were full and you couldn't find a parking spot sometimes. People are out and about, and that doesn't go away. So Next, we've got all the other opportunities that, we have and we actually do, because the money has been put aside a little bit every year in that envelope, where we look at what's forest, farmland soils, the vistas, the whole 9 yards. And it works. All right, next, please. This is a history of what our community has done to preserve open space in this community. It didn't just happen. There was a lot of money put forward to protect it. All right. Next, please. We have about 380. We have a parcel up now where we're waiting to hear back on a grant, and I think it would basically eat up that. These are all the ongoing. Every year we cite them. I'm not going to regurgitate them. You can see what they are. If anybody has any questions, you can always reach out or ask after. Next, please. All right. It's pretty much, we're wrapping it up. So in person, I love to do it in person because I'm that kind of guy, but this is something that I firmly believe in. Others before me have believed in. People sitting in your seats have believed in. And the people in our community, they believe in it. When we're at the Maple Fest or we're at Hebron Day and people come up and say, hey, I live over here. Yeah, we use this. We do this at this park. We've been walking here. It means a lot. And I say, well, thank you. This is how it gets funded, as do my colleagues. So it doesn't go, it's not just in the background. This is really, it's out there. And the reason we're getting these major shifts, I talked to Andy briefly today about the shift in the numbers at RAM. You know why? Because Hebron's a great place to live. Bottom line, people are doing their jobs, volunteers and staff, and it is a great place to live. Great place to go to school, a great place to recreate, a great place to feel safe. And that goes to everybody that's been doing all of this over the years. And the few dollars that open space requests, I chuckle a little bit. It's a line. We can see it when we draw the, the circle chart. But the dollars that we put aside in this envelope, they last. They're there forever. And that's really important. You can't go back and get it once it's gone. That's thanks to Mr. Ellis. All right. That's pretty much, I'm wrapping it up.
Open it up for questions then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Of course.
Anybody have any questions?
Hearing none.
I'll open it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll open it up. With the open space, and Mr. McManus brought it up also, whose responsibility is it for the upkeep, maintenance of the land, making sure that it does create a good environment for for everything, and then what or who would be the one that would say what would be allowed on the different pieces of open space, i.e. What type of outdoor activities, fishing, what have you?
Good question. Thank you. Great segue. So it would be currently Park and Rec. Park and Rec wears the hat of maintenance. The town manager, I think, put aside $10,000, maybe a handful plus years ago, for them to get out there and allocate some staffing to not only maintaining the airline trail, brush hogging, fields, Church Street properties, keeping it clear of invasives, et cetera. It is a costly endeavor. If you really wanted to get into it, you could probably do it with some volunteer work, but it would be Park and Rec on the maintenance side. Like I said, open space is an advisory board to tell y'all that here's a great piece of property. Somebody approached us, we sized it up, and it makes sense. We wouldn't bring it to you if it didn't. And on the uses, I think, Mr. Chair, it would be probably, I guess, Park and Rec as well. I mean, when we buy a piece of property, we will present the Board of Selectmen with a list of recommendations and why we're recommending that parcel. It could be that there's there's logging trails on it for hiking. It's preserving like when we bought the piece of property abutting the airline trail, I want to say it was just pre-pandemic. And it's got trails on it. It abuts, I don't know, 1,000 feet of the airline trail and the river, the brook. Great for fishing. It just different pieces are going to be done for different reasons. Sometimes, and just like the state of Connecticut, if you follow deep, you're buying a piece of property and you don't plan on, you're buying it because it came available. It probably is not suitable for much else, but it's going to be there, and there's a whole bunch of new things that are coming out about carbon sequestration and whatnot, and how to go about that. So not every piece we get is going to be recreation or doing things on it. It's going to be there for preservation. It could be we want to preserve a piece of property for farmland and possibly let people farm on it. So it would vary.
I see I have a hand up somewhere. Mel.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Mal, great to hear you.
I just got a couple of questions. And I don't know, it's probably more for Andy, the first one. I remember the year that the $10,000 was appropriated. Do we continue that appropriation every year? We do, okay. Approximately, I just ran through this this afternoon, and it looked to me like we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 parcels, maybe 40 parcels out there. And I think you said, what, 2,300 acres? Is there a goal as to how many acres? I kind of remember when I was on the commission that there was, I remember hearing the number in the mid 40% of the town in acres.
Yeah, I think, Mal, the state of Connecticut, I don't know which governor had brought it up at one point, and they talked about somewhere in that ballpark. We don't have anything written down hardcore because it's, as you can recall, it's planning. You're laying out and you're looking at what is here in the community, and only if someone decides to approach you and not a developer or someone else, are you going to, have the opportunity to actually, get in the game and make something happen. So if a person, wants to develop it and they want to go through that process, then like I said, God bless them. You're going to do what you're going to do. You got to do what's right for you. But we are there as basically to say, hey, if you wanted to possibly talk to the town of Hebron about options, whether it was gifting, estate planning, in regards to land preservation, then, give us a call. We'd be glad to talk to you. And only, if indeed the process in that piece of property was right for the town, we have turned people away.
Okay. In the process, as you earlier explained, you turn over recommendations when you procure a piece of land. My understanding,
when we're looking to, yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding that if there's state monies in it, there are certain things we have to do, like provide places to park, and we have to mark it, identify it as open space and locate the boundary markers and make those evident. Is that being done? I know it's being done in some of the more the more visual places, but
yeah.
I also go ahead.
No, that is, I think Mr. Cordier could probably talk that out a little bit in a second, but depending on what grant, like I said, we do go for grants, folks, all the time. We are in the loop and we are active in that process. A grant may have stipulations. it will be, you're going to mark the property, obviously. Parking, not necessarily. The parking is if you're going to have Hebron land open to the public, you want to have some parking available. So the grant would stipulate if there are any things that we need to do on the town's end because of us accepting a grant.
And do we
And we would do
need,
those, obviously.
do we need more money in order to do these things on all the properties?
We need, I think, to continuously fund the envelope. Sometimes 2 or 3 years can go by. There's nothing happening. And, then all of a sudden something might fall in your lap or a couple things might happen. You just don't know when they're going to transpire. I think to Terry's point earlier, yeah, we need some kind of a maintenance plan. I'd be glad to, work with Park and Rec but that's gonna take funding or at least a discussion to identify the funding, how to seed it. I mean, seed money, and then what are we trying to do? We want to make sure that our open spaces are identified. That's something coming down the pike. GPS, people can get to them on a map and find their way around. 12 Line Trail Town has done that, and we're going to be working on that. The Park and Rec maintenance staff, I mean, what little they have, I guess, it's going to be part on their shoulders, or I'd leave that up to the town manager and staff to figure it out how they want to go about it. But it would go back to, hey, if we got a piece of property like the one across from I can't say the dump, the transfer station now, that pine tree forest, it's gorgeous. There's nothing you want to do in there. And it's just leave it away. Mother Nature's done a great job in there. Just take a walk in there if you've never been there.
Yeah, been there.
Some things we don't have to touch.
No, understand that. Just, I think I've always supported open space, and I continue to to support it for all the reasons that you delineated in your presentation. I just think we need to, I don't think Rec Department has a clear picture of their responsibility. It wasn't until you just mentioned it today that I understood that, no, this has been discussed and it is their responsibility. So I'd just like to see more dollars put towards maintaining that property. Thank you for your answer. Appreciate it.
It's been, I was on Park and Rec. I don't know how, you're talking more than a decade plus ago when
Right.
the Board of Selectmen gave Park and Rec the responsibility to maintain it. So it has been, it has been out there. Jim, do you want to, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if Mr.
Go ahead.
Courtier could address one of the other questions?
Yeah, if I may, just to answer Mal's questions. Yeah, Mal, the Conservation Commission and some of the other sub-agencies have been working in consort with the Park and Rec Commission. They are coming up with recreational and conservation lands usage rules and regulations. They're trying to get something codified and contemporized, and we've afforded them quite a bit of input. And there are rules, like, for example, the prohibition of motorized vehicles on town properties and on the trails. And they are the custodians of all active recreation and conservation lands. And these regulations that will come into play fairly soon are just about completed and should address most of that. The second tier of the allowances and restrictions concepts to which you were alluding would be state requirements if we purchase open space with their funds. Those properties can only be used for passive recreation. That will be fishing, hiking, skiing, biking, and the like. We're not talking about ball fields or golf courses or anything like that. And they're pretty stringent. And yes, they do have requirements that are monitored and checked at the next grant application each time that proper signage has been posted, that boundaries have been delineated, not just through our GIS system and actual placarding, particularly where the public traverses, but also in the conduct of the A2 surveys that are a requirement prior to the land changing hands. So I think all bases are basically being covered. Most of these properties do not lend themselves to maintenance. A lot of them are active recreation lands that the Park and Rec Department continually maintains using assets organic to their organization. They also maintain our open spaces. There, we're probably talking about trail usage or the removal of any hazards. To date, their role has been very, very minimal, and the expenses have been almost non-existent in terms of maintaining our current open spaces. Some may require in the future 5, 10, 50 years from now that parking lots be installed, or perhaps fire breaks be in place as state requirements and regulations and needs change. But the main thing right now, I think, is to ensure that we're satisfying everybody's requirements and making for safe and enjoyable recreational pursuits. As Brian had indicated, this is why people came to Hebron. Everybody wants to live in a country. We've been blessed by the legacy that's been left us by our forebears and those who came before us, and we want to pass it forward. And this has just been a wonderful program, and we appreciate your having embraced this over the years. I do fear, however, that over the past 15 years, if you looked at the funding history for this particular account, that support is kind of waning on the part of the Board of Finance and boards of selectmen. Again, this is going back about 15 years. Our funding has been very marginal, but we've made use of every penny that was given of us, and we've leveraged it with other revenue streams, fees in lieu of open space, and in particular, the state grants. And we think we're doing it well here. Some towns have a role that's quite different than ours. Some towns are the more densely populated. They're the workplaces and the seats of education, industry, commerce, recreation, government, or a combination of the foregoing. Whereas our towns, they're minimally populated, and we're agricultural producers and residential areas and custodians of conservation lands that really contribute to the state's ecological health and public health and history, as was just mentioned. And we were blessed with more environmental assets, and I think we have really more that's expected of us. There was a tenet put forth under the Rolling administration years back that the goal statewide should be having 21% of the state's land mass as forested in protected property. And while this wasn't a binding goal, most towns that could aspire to that. Hebron right now, I believe, is at about, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 26, 27%, somewhere in that range. And we're contributing really to the state, not as economic drivers per se of Connecticut's quality of life, but as the heart and the lungs and the liver of the states, with the oxygen that we produce and the groundwater that we protect and the habitat preservation and the agricultural lands that are producing product and whatnot. So this touches the bases on many levels, and we're quite proud of it. And we really appreciate your support. It's been extended.
Jim, you confirmed everything that I thought I knew. My only question is, you had said you had mentioned signage and parking and such, and are you saying those are all done, or those are in progress? They're planning and
they're in progress. For example, okay. The Bernstein property. Right. While we've got most of the areas that the public is exposed to or would access that property from, do have the placards. There are some parts in the hinterland that's traversed, swamp areas and areas that abut uninhabited lands or undeveloped lands that have to be finished up on. But the older the park, the more placarded it is as far as the boundaries. But again, when they mention boundaries, it doesn't necessarily mean little tin signs on all the trees. It also means, again, GIS references and the A2 surveys and what's in our town maps and on our systems.
And the last question I have for either Brian or Jim, is there a place where I can go to find out a listing of all of these open spaces that I can walk? Or is
You
there
can walk any
any,
of them now.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, my computer is flashing. All of them are open to the public and accessible.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but
Yeah.
is there some place, if I don't know where the lands are, is there some place where I can go to see? I see Jim shaking his head.
Yeah, yeah. The park and recreations department's website will get you in there, and there's also another website that you can get a link to on PNR site that gives you all the trails and the coordinates and what the major features are. And that was done by our resident David Rose, who was an excellent cartographer. And a lot of this work has been voluntary, particularly on David's part, and on a young lady by the name of Catherine Chester. She's done some extensive work too on marking all of Hebron's trails.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Jim and Brian and everybody else on the commission. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Okay, I know we have two more, and then hopefully we can then move on. Mike O'Leary and Peter Casper.
Dan, Mike O'Leary is not here. That was Jim Cordier.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So Peter's up next.
Peter, okay.
Just a quick comment. I can't see that everyone is. Brian, are you still on or are you gone? All right, because he won't answer if he's gone. But is Brian still here or is he gone?
He's
There
right
he
there.
is.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you had signed up. So just a couple of things. Well, first a comment. You guys do a great job and really appreciate what you do for the town. And as you mentioned that there's a parcel you're looking at, and if that is agreed to and you move forward, that'll exhaust the balance that you have. And Jim had comment on some waning funding or potential interest. Could you share, I'm thinking for future budgets too, could you share an ideal balance? I mean, what sort of, I know the original intent and all that of the mill, but is there a certain amount of money that we should be thinking about that should be in the fund for potential future acquisitions?
That's a good question. Peter, you never know. Like I said, 3 years could go by and nobody approaches us. And I think the envelope system, putting a little bit aside, we asked for a couple 100,000. We did it last year. Obviously you got to do what you need to do. I made the comment when we put the 200,000 out as a number. If I had my druthers and I knew it wasn't going to be this kind of year, I'd ask for 4. Just to give us some breathing room. I believe that if something happens, that this group comes back to the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance to say, hey, say it was a large piece, like, that not going to go to the state that Hebron should buy. I think you put it up to the folks that have to make the decision, and hopefully they commit to it with town funds, an additional allocation. But I think a couple 100,000 would have been a good number. Again, I know it's a big number, but you're talking about investing it's not your retirement. You're investing for Hebron, and what we're doing is really it's in the background. So it's easy to say, yeah, I'm not going to fund that as much, but what we're doing here is making the job easier for you guys. What we did 8-10 years ago, and it's not easy, but maybe our success is part of the problem with, the allocation of percentages changing according to what briefly I saw with RAM. Hebron's a great place to be. And if we cut it short, if we don't fund it, you're not going to get that back. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind. And do you say, oh, we've done enough? No, you never done enough. We just don't we don't need to have too much in the fund. If we had $1 million sitting in the fund or something like that, hopefully you're getting some interest on it like we used to. But we wouldn't be looking to, keep adding to it at that point. Anything over that would be probably a state of Connecticut purchase. So I would say minimum. I don't have a minimum. I say maximum. Yeah, there probably would be a maximum. We've never had anything that big. That'd be a good problem to have.
Okay, and if I could switch to the maintenance issue, and I heard Jim talk about a lot of the property isn't necessarily in need of a lot of expense and maintenance from Parks and Rec, but I think one of the gaps that I hear about and I think about myself is understanding the maintenance need, because I think some folks do believe that we've purchased quite a bit, and maybe to Terry's comments, what are we doing about maintenance, with the thought that maybe public's thinking we're not doing enough in that area. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to get more information about the maintenance plans and what's needed, because 10,000 off the top of my head would seem like not enough to do anything in town. And so, and maybe it is, but I don't know if maybe there's an opportunity. So I guess more of a statement than a question, to better communicate how we think about maintenance in conjunction with the original goal of obviously, maintenance isn't part of your committee's charge, but nonetheless, it is something that I think the town does think about and the voters do think about in conjunction with funding it. So maybe there's just a way we can think about how to articulate that more effectively over time, so people can kind of connect the budget to the, to the maintenance part of it. So that's, I guess, more of a comment than a question. Thank you.
And I agree. Mr. Chair, if I may, I agree. I think we should have some kind of a plan as far as if you've got a Burn Hill Park, everybody knows it, right? It's gorgeous. People come to this community and they say how gorgeous it is, how lucky we are. Well, it didn't just come about. There was a lot of planning that went into that, from soup to nuts. And me and my colleagues were there, and you had to see it through the phases, everything from identifying the parcel to, the build out and getting it passed and the whole 9 yards. Some pieces do not need anything done. Like I said, across from the landfill, or whatever. I'm dating myself. The transfer station. There's a gate just to the south, across the street. Pine trees. You walk in there, and you get lost. It's absolutely pristine. You don't need to do anything there. Mother Nature's doing it. Depends on the soil types. Depends on how much light it gets. Some things will become overrun with invasives. So there is maintenance needs in certain areas, and others is probably not. That is not our bailiwick. That would be Park and Rec. And it then comes down to, I think, if you can get volunteers. I mean, that's how we built when I got started back in the day with the Airline Trail. We got Cub Scouts out. Everybody came out. You cleared a path. Andy and his town crew came down and did some of the heavy lifting, and we built the Airline Trail. And so I think it can be that way once again. I don't think you have to throw mega bucks at this. I think it just has to be prudent. And there's many ways to skin the cat. In some pieces you don't need to do anything, but others you definitely want and should have public access. I thought of it I'm going to wrap up here, but I thought of it the other night. I said to say to you all that if you could walk 2 or 3 of our parcels a year, and then over the course of a decade, if God willing, that you'd be amazed at what we have in our backyard. It is absolutely beautiful. And each piece has its own unique characteristics. I think you would be pleasantly surprised. So the Irish guy is going to shut up for a while.
Okay.
I'm done.
Anyone else quickly? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just to answer the question, maintenance has been a manifold effort by both staff and volunteers. You've got your Parks and Rec folks. You've had volunteers. I know, Mal, you were out there yourself cutting down the grass up by the Way property a couple of years ago as a volunteer. There is currently being formed a volunteer staff of trail keepers, as it were, that will be working under the aegis of the Park and Rec Department to do a little spotting and light maintenance. Then again, we've got the Park and Rec folks ourselves, and then there's some areas of town where even deep shares of maintenance capability or capacity with the town. And so the other issue that was raised prior to maintenance, and again, the planning process is a continuum. But the other issue is that we have prided ourselves as a committee and as a town in using the cookie jar annual set-aside approach for our open space funding. If you've noticed, we have not inadvertently visited harm on our AAA bond rating by floating huge bonding for purchases of open space like Glastonbury has and some of the other larger towns. We've done it a little bit at a time. And any expenditures we make, we always make damn sure that we use somebody else's nickel, at least part of somebody else's nickel, to foot the tab. So we've been pretty frugal with the town's funds. And depending upon what needs drive the purchases, could be more, could be less from year to year. But as Brian was saying, it's a moving target as far as availabilities and needs go, and how we can match those things up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. As I say, I'm trying to move things along here a little bit. So thank you for all your words, and moving on. Andy?
Okay, I believe next on the agenda would be Public Works. Can you hear me?
Good evening again, everybody. I was asked just to touch on some of the larger numbers on the budget. Does everybody have their worksheets? They can follow along. And if I skip over something that somebody wants to talk about or question, please interrupt me.
Okay, could I just
Hang on 1 minute,
verify,
yeah.
that is section what?
Yeah, so I'm gonna let Elaine give advice to where everybody should go in the book, what page or what budget number, Elaine, so everybody can find it before Kevin starts.
We're beginning with 4101 through 4104 for Kevin's presentation.
Thank you.
So are we gonna start on page 30?
Page 30 or page 10?
I've got 32.
I was going to
The
say
page
32.
number,
I have 32
It's
as well.
it says 32, that's numbered from the appropriation summary. It's in tab 4000 and then 4101. You'll have 4001 and 4025 before it, but you need 4101.
Okay.
Everybody set? Looking under the numbers for the proposed budget, the first large number we come across is the overtime payroll, and that's judged by the contract. If you see an increase there, because there's an increase to the contract every year to the guys working. The next larger number you see down there is a uniform allowance, and once again, we have a contract with Swiss that handles all the uniforms for the guys, and that's per contractor. We have to supply them by their union. Vehicle repairs is basically an inflation escalation. We take care of about 65 pieces of vehicles, cars and tractors and equipment, not only for public works, but for park and rec, the town hall. We help maintain the senior center and the police department. So that's covers all of those costs. Right now, we have a balance. We're in beginning of March of 22,579 left. We have 4 months left to go. We've had a light winter, so we haven't had a lot of breakdowns. So, historically, we were always running a little bit over in that line item. So bumping it up to 90 is probably prudent. Gas and diesel are bought through the town hall. Working my way down. Tires is a significant cost. Just a few years ago, that number was 20,000. We've been keeping it in check. So we've been doing well in that department. So that's $14,250. Capital outlay is next. We're asking for $10,000. And that's mostly for electrical upgrades for the plug-in places for the trucks. We have to keep them outside because we can't fit them all inside. We have to keep them plugged in for the block heaters so they'll start in the morning. And then another part of that is railing repairs at the transfer station. At least 3 times a year, we're down there buying steel and repairing the railings from where everybody backs into them. Skipping to page 33. Our miscellaneous service contract, most of that is our, find it here. Our contracts for buying oxygen and acetylene for our fire extinguishers, garage mats, all our engineering services through Nathan Jacobson. We handle all our landfill testing that has to be done each year, all the MS4 reporting that we do, which is all the stormwater reporting that has to be done, and the reports filled every year. So that's what that number's about. Equipment maintenance for 6,500. That's all the oil and the grease, transmission fluid, antifreeze. That's what that's about. Telephone, electricity are what they are. Moving to page 34.
Good question.
Yep.
You're showing a heating oil cost going down. How? Is that
Elaine, I'll let
accurate?
you help me with that if you could.
They're based on actuals for usage. So if you look at what the final figures were for the 21-22 fiscal year, it was $3,700. I don't know why we bumped it up to $6,400 for the current fiscal year. My guess would just be because we had locked into a contract at the time the budget was prepared for the current fiscal year. So we bumped it up a little bit more than we needed to. So now I think the $49.89 is what will be needed for next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, storm drain cleaning, 38,000 is the price went up to $25.55 per basin this year through the CROG bid, and that's Capital Region Council of Governments. We have 1,572 basins in town, and we have all kinds of sedimentation structures and vortex structures up at the lake that have to be cleaned every year per the MS4 requirements. Street markings are also up quite a bit. It's up to $485.96 a mile. That's off the CROG bid. We stripe 40 miles a year, which is half our roads, and we do them on a rotation. Some of the smaller roads we don't stripe just because we try to maintain the character of the smaller roads, but we've been holding steady with that 40-mile number. Road repair materials at $250,000. That's covers all our in-house work for paving when we're paving aprons, doing the small road patches, doing road crossings. If we have to hire a contractor with a backhoe to come in and help us, that's where that comes out of. The concrete contractors that come in and help us build catch basins, that all comes out of that line item. And we tried to keep it the same. We try not to increase that. And to follow along with that, the off-road materials right underneath it. That's all the catch basin blocks and bricks and the sumps and structures and things like that. that go in the road. So one of our big numbers here is other winter materials. Requested quite a bit more in that. We tried to be conservative and bring it back down in the long run. The cost of salt this year jumped from about $78 a ton up to $106. And as it turns out, that was the supply we normally use. We had to switch suppliers and we got it down to $96 a ton. And we're lucky we've had a light winter because this supplier that we're using this year is notorious for not being able to supply the towns in good time, especially the smaller towns where we don't have storage, because we just can't keep all the salt we need, right? What we need. So every couple of storms, we got to restock. We do use white salt when we can for doing the schools, and that's quite a bit cheaper at $67 a ton. But also under that line item is all the plow blades for the plows, all the carbide edges, sand when we have ice storms and we have to mix sand with the salt. Ice melt for all the sidewalks in town now, that comes out of that line item. So that has a tendency to run over on a bad winter. This year, we normally use about 1,400 tons of salt per year. I'm hoping this year it's going to be quite a bit less. We're so far having kind of a light winter. We've been called out 18 times so far. But, you know, March is still here, so we'll see how we make out. Does anybody have any questions on that?
So where are you at on your budget for this year?
I have not been given a readout on that, to be honest with you, Dan. I'm sorry. I can get it for you and send it to you.
Because again, it's the type of thing that if we happen to have monies left over, if we could purchase for next year out of this year's budget to try to save on some of the next year's potential expenses is what my only thought.
I appreciate that. I try not to let that salt bin ever get empty, just because, you know, at the end of the year, hopefully it's 3/4 full and we're thinking about next year. But it's a good thought, though. It'll be cheaper now to buy it this year than next year.
You said white salt.
Let me jump in, Kevin.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But
No, go ahead. I'm just questioning the difference between the white salt and the regular road salt.
So Dan, to answer your question, Kevin added the tonnage that he normally uses with the price. I cut that way back.
Right. Yeah, I see that, but
to answer your question, Dan, white salt is an untreated salt. The other salt is treated with like a molasses byproduct, and it keeps the scatter. The salt doesn't scatter when it's put on the road, and it activates it quicker, so it works faster. When we're using white salt on parking lots, if it scatters a little bit, the trucks aren't going as fast, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to work as fast, because usually we're doing parking lots and it's just sitting there before the schools come into session and stuff. So it works fine the way it is. So seeing it's cheaper, we try to use it there.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving on to page 35. CREOC went up quite a bit, and that's the group there that handles the hazardous waste through Manchester. And they have a new person running that department, and they tried to get proactive here and there, adding on 3 more events this year. So we're anticipating an additional cost. And we pay, as the residents go and drop off their stuff, they keep track of which town they come from, and we get charged accordingly. So as I said, we're anticipating that to be up a little bit. The good side is we don't have to staff it with our people now. They're doing it all with their own personnel, and they're paying for it that way. Usually we have to send 2 or 3 guys to 2 or 3 events a year. We don't have to do that anymore. The next one that's up a little bit is the waste removal, and that's the waste oil and antifreeze at the dump and at the recycling center, excuse me. We have to get it tested a lot more now, and if any of it comes in where it doesn't pass the test from Phoenix Labs, it's considered contaminated, and that happens once in a while. So we have to have it tested more. We're getting more oil, so, which is a good thing because that's why we do it. But the cost is up a little on that. And another big number here is the solid waste, bulky waste. As we all discussed in the past, we have a new contract with Casella Recycling, which bought out Willimantic Waste. The costs have gone up substantially this year. We're now paying $105 a ton for MSW, which is the household trash, paying $95 a ton for bulky waste. And the single stream recycling, which we used to pay $31 a ton to get rid of, now we are paying, in February, I paid $118.85 a ton. So the last 4 months, it went up substantially. I called Casella and I discussed it with them again. And they have a formula that they used and we agreed to because we really didn't have a choice. I was asking them what their projections are for that. And they told me that, first thing is recycling is the law in Connecticut. So we have to recycle it. We can't just throw it away in the MSW and do it that way because of DEP. There's no market for these recyclings right now overseas, and the mills in the United States are just getting up and running. And with that being said, they're hoping and they're expecting things to get better in the second half of the year. So let's hope. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Kelly?
Okay.
Now, I do. Is that the solid waste? Is that all three of those, the MSW, the bulky, and the recycling? Is that all in that one line?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I hear somebody else.
Yes, Mr. Kelly, it's Diane. Can you repeat the three amounts?
Yeah, the MSW, we're paying $105 a ton. Bulky waste, which is the demolition waste, is $95 a ton. And we charge for that at the transfer station, so that is offset by what they pay there to get rid of it. And the single stream is the last month was $118.85.
And what did we use to pay for that?
With Willie Waste from July through October, we paid $31.83.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I thought that's what you said.
They have a formula which we could send to you, and it helps understand. It's a little complicated, but it's called an ACR threshold rebate. But anyhow, if you'd like, we could send that to you. And I believe that's all I have for the regular budget. Donna, would you like me to do the capital outlay 10 to 75 while we're at it?
I was going to say,
Sure.
I had one other question.
Sure.
The elephant in the room. Has there been any work done on what the cost would be if we were to not do recycling, just the bulky waste and metal and stuff like that, and had everything its own pickup?
I know it's been discussed. I haven't done anything with it, no.
Okay. I mean, I love our recycling center, but something that we really need to kind of look at all options. As much as I don't
Mr.
really.
Chairman,
Yes,
now, The building
Yes.
committee is in the middle of doing that analysis now
Oh,
of the
okay.
comparison. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I'm sorry. Continue, please.
Okay, the capital outlay section of the budget, which is the 10,000 to 75,000, in the 5-year plan. This year, Public Works is requesting, $73,452 to replace the dump body on truck 46. Now, this is something we did last year with one truck. And what we do is we take a look at the chassis and we see if we can make it last for a few extra years. So we hope to gain another 5 or 6 years out of this truck by taking the body off that's completely shot and putting a new body on from Freightliner that's bought through the state bid. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, next is the Grayville Bridge replacement. If you go down Grayville Road all the way to the end where it goes out onto DEP property, there's a small wooden bridge there that connects a couple of houses. And that's a town-owned bridge. And the owners of the property were questioning how good the bridge was because they knew it was over 23 years old. It was built in 2001. So the state went out and did an analysis on the bridge, decided it was in poor shape. They want to reduce the load rating on the bridge and want us to take some kind of action to replace it. Our normal action to replace bridges is to take out a loan with the local bridge program through the state, where we pay a percentage. But for a small bridge like that, we were thinking that it's going to be more cost effective to let the Public Works Department just buy the materials and do it themselves in-house. So that's what that is what the 31,000 is for, just the materials to rebuild that bridge. And that's for the stringers and all the wood structure to it. And the Public Works Department will build it. Moving on to the roof replacement for
Could I ask a
50,700.
question on that bridge?
Yep.
Because that also serves the state, entrance into the state forest, is there any possible potential partial reimbursement from DEP forestry?
I don't know. I can ask. Usually when the state has a bridge program, they'd refer it to that, and then we'd have to pay the percentage like we've done on the other bridges.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because that is the access into the state forest as well. So
I can reach out to DEP and see what they say.
thank you.
Okay, the other one, the roof repair replacement, for $50,735. My original cost to do that was quite a bit higher. And I got a recommendation from the fire chief and from a Design sheet metal contractors who are actually based in town. And the cost for the roof, to recoat the roof over on the public works side, was $11,500. And that's just to check all the fasteners and repair the roof and put a white silicone coating on it. And then we got a price for the storage building across from us to redo that one. And he said he wouldn't even walk on the roof. It was that bad a shape. So he says you got to take everything off, put a new metal roof on. And that came to $39,235. That's what I have for that. Any questions? No one
I'm
has any
I'm
other
sorry.
questions?
Where is that? Where are you showing that? I'm sorry.
That's in the capital outlay, 10,000 to 75,000. Not sure where that is in the book.
You'll find those materials in section 2 at the very back, under a tab that says capital expenditures. And that spreadsheet that we're displaying on the screen is there, and all the backup materials with the department request and the quotes are there in your book.
Okay, so what he just mentioned was in one of the details. Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't see it, the total on the spreadsheet, so that's why I was like, missing something. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, if no one has any other questions, the Board of Finance asked me to do a talk about the WPCA budget while I was at it here. And historically, we don't do that until June. That's when it goes to public hearing, but I did work up a worksheet on it. I can go over the numbers real quick. Just give everybody, this has not been voted on or anything from WPCA. It's a little early for that. These are mostly my ideas and my recommendations. User fees this year, the EDU rate is $550 a year. And we bill 1,094 EDUs. We figure that we're not going to collect about 3% of that. So we're using a number of 585,000, which is a little bit less than the 3%, but that's what we're projecting this year from our revenue collector. Our interest revenues is about 30,150. Permit fees is 700. Connection fees of 5,635. The Lebanon fees are 30,000, which hopefully we're going to determine more in May. We're scheduled for court for a couple of days in May. See if we can bring that to resolution. So the total revenue for projected year is $651,533. Expenses, I did not count on a expense to town hall this year as we didn't last year. 10,000 for the administrator. I'm not sure if you can read how they go down on that paper there, but supplies $100, postage $100, engineering 2,000. Legal, I put in 1,500. At right now this year we're at 1,900. We're going to go over on that by the time we get out of court. I can see it coming. So that may be off a little bit. The Colchester contract, we're reducing down to 430,000. Right now, I'm projecting 420 some odd thousand this year. I don't know for sure yet. I'm doing guesstimates on it, which is the main reason we don't do it until later in the year. If it's a wet spring, that number will go up. With no snow in a wet winter, means heavy flows for sewer. So that number has been kind of on the high side right now. Joint facilities, I'm carrying $83,000, which is they take care of servicing all our grinder pumps and pump stations when needed. They were suggesting we carry 93, but talking with the foreman over there and knowing that we have all these new pump stations online, we're thinking that the call outs for service are going to be less. So we reduced it down to 83. Other big ones, the telephone last year was 7,000. I cut that in half to 3,500. And the reason I did that is because we don't have any of the cable hookup for the alarms anymore because of all the new pump stations. They're all on mission systems, they call them, which are all cellular, which don't have the same fees that the cable systems have. So we should be even getting more of a discount of that. This year being the first year, we're checking on that now to see if there's any cost for the upcoming year or not. The electricity, we kept the same. Fuel, same. The liability was the same. Contingency, we leave there in case we go over. This year, we're already over in that line. It's $10,000. To balance it out, I carried 27,233 in the sinking fund. And last year we carried 76. We try to keep some in there. So when we have major breakdowns and such, we have money to cover it. So that balanced it out to 651,533. Then I'm suggesting to add another 20,000 to the sinking fund because I think it's prudent to do that. And I know of additional expenses coming from Colchester of another 25,000 that I know are coming beyond what we're doing with the ARPA funds. So I want to anticipate that. So that's another $45,000 or $45,000. So you take that and it comes to about a $42 increase in the EDU rate. So that's what I'm going to propose at this time. That's subject to change because it's going to change in the next few months. But does anybody have any thoughts or questions on that? I know it's a lot right off the bat. You don't have it in front of you. Mike?
Thank you, Kevin. Two questions, and I realize that this is a rough estimate. The fees that you are projecting for revenue from Lebanon, is that
Yes.
based upon what you've been collecting historically, although that amount is in dispute, or is that taking into consideration the possibility of a successful result in court?
That's taking into account back when they had a meter and we were doing actual readings and actual billings that we were confident in. And it should be pretty close. But if we have our way in court, it should be substantially more.
Okay.
And
then the second question.
I do think, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, I do think that we have to revisit the formula somehow if we don't end up on the good side in court.
Great, thank you. And the second question I have, with respect to the expense for the Colchester contract, can you just explain what that is? What that's for?
Yeah, we pay, we're 37% of the total flow of Colchester that goes to East Hampton. And so whatever their maintenance charges are and such, they bill us in a per 1,000-gallon rate. So right now we're paying $4.84 per 1,000 gallons. On a busy month, we can flow anywhere from 6 million to 9 million gallons a month. So it's a substantial number. So average month somewhere around 40,000, something like that. We're paying to them. I'm just throwing up a number. It varies. Goes, if it's in the rainy season, that number jumps way up. You're paying 50,000. So there's a formula they send us every year to justify it, and then that usually comes in August. So.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Dan Larson. Is the added flow because of storm water intrusion into the system?
Yes.
Okay. And weren't there some tests and all that were done to try to ascertain where that was happening, or whatever happened with that?
We did a facility study before we did the plan for this rebuilding the pump stations, and they did a lot of II testing there. It was a very dry year and we didn't show a lot. The problem is you got some wet areas in town, like up at the lake area. Most of that sewer line is underwater. And if there's any intrusion into the pipes at all. Let's say there's a gasket leaking, a manhole leaking, something like that. So when there's a heavy rain, it takes on more water. Also, we don't know if there's sump pumps tied in that people
Okay.
tie in illegally. That happens. Water that's flowing down the road into the tops of the manhole, that's a little bit of an inflow, but you're right. That's what it is. It's stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Andy?
So I think next on the agenda would be miscellaneous government, if you wanted to dive into that. I think I'm correct in not having an agenda.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's any areas that somebody has in particular they have questions on, whether it be Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen.
I don't know. Janet, anybody? Janet.
You know I did. Um, so Andy, I think it would be really helpful if we could come up with, so right now you're saying we have a 4 mil increase. Like what does a 2 mil increase look like? What's a 2.5? What's a 3? Just in 3.5. Just so, we know how much we're looking at to bring it down to get to a certain point.
Okay, we can conduct that exercise and have it for the next
Yeah.
meeting.
I think then everybody, like we can look at it and say, oh, we're never getting to 2. Like we'd have to really cut. Or we're like, oh, this is doable. But without those numbers, it's sort of hard to judge.
All right, so I'll work with Elaine in the next couple of days and prior to the next meeting. We know what a mill, at least what we think the mill's gonna be, the value is, and we can show that in percentages of what those numbers would equal to.
Yeah, and that way people have a feeling. Have we heard anything from RAM? Is their numbers concrete, or are they still looking at increasing or decreasing?
No, they good question. As far as I know, I'm staying in contact with Colin, the superintendent, and they continue to have budget workshops. And we've got another meeting coming up with insurance. We're locking in the fuel as we speak in the next week or so. All that stuff is going to hopefully help and bring the needle down in the right direction. So they continue to meet. Just for the people that don't know, I'm sure you do, Janet, is the shift in the levy is what's hurting Hebron. I've had conversations with both Andover and Marlboro, and they seem to be content with Ram's budget. So, it's a 4-point-something% increase, which isn't out of line.
Not bad.
Yeah, and this year's escalation in cost, what things are costing. So I think he's committed to do what he can. I don't know how much better he's going to do, but hopefully we can move that in the right direction.
Well, any little help he gives us would help out. When I was looking at numbers, I wasn't thinking they would add too much to it.
If anybody knows the chairman of that board, don't hesitate to call him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Janet, because that was some of the questions that I had asked. To get it down to a mill increase that we think that the taxpayers will agree to, we need to have some sort of targets where we need to be to get to that type of a number, and we need to know kind of sort of what that dollar amount might be. The other thing, and I know reading, we have the possibility of losing some state municipal grants because of our budget percentage. Now it was talked tonight of 6.19%. I don't know what that number is. we just don't know what some of these numbers are. Did see something that had come from Dr. Beard on that they potentially could lose a 350,000 whatever it was dollar grant, but without knowing what that grant is all about, um, you know, there's some big numbers there. And we kind of sort of need to know what some of that is. I'm not sure if Mal could fill us in, or Elaine, or anybody else on what that grant that they were talking about is. And we also need to know from them what is mandatory and what is optional.
Correct.
I don't think they've given us really that information. You know, I know they're talking about all these programs and all, but is this, again, we're in a year, can we add more programs? You know,
Right, yeah, or if we add programs, maybe since the preschool is something that the parents are charged, maybe we don't cover the entire expense, but we could cover some of it with increasing the charge that the parents get. I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to do that, but you have to look at all the pieces. And they get to decide in the end how they want to spend the money.
yeah. Well, and here again on preschool, should we be subsidizing preschool on the those who are financially able to, or to get aid? That's one thing, but you know, if this is just a way to cut out paying, you know, to go to a preschool system and to put it on the backs of the taxpayers, I don't feel that's correct either. You know,
Yeah, but that's something that they need to decide and do. I mean, I think preschool shows that it pays for itself over the years. But yeah, you know, we only can tell them how much they're going to get as a budget, not how they can charge and spend it.
And I think, Mr. Chair, with all due respect, it would probably be best if we could have conversations about the education budget when we meet with the chairs of both boards next week. I think these are good topics and important conversations, but I think it makes far more sense to wait until the boards of both education boards are here, so
oh
we
yeah.
don't have to speculate.
Well, and I agree, but I'm just saying, you know, we really need to kind of know some of what these numbers are, what we need to be aiming for. You know, because without having that, you know, we're spinning our wheels. I mean, everybody's got a good solid reason and need for their dollar amounts that they're requesting. The thing is, we're going to have to decide whether or not we can afford that as a community. And if not, you know, maybe a piece of it, you know, I don't know, because we don't know all the information yet. Mel, Diane?
Hi, Chairman Larson. I want to let you know that the Board of Finance reviewed, the budget for the Hebron Board of Ed that was submitted to us at one of our last meetings, not the one last week, but the week before. And we felt as though we needed more information, and there's information per the town charter that we should be getting that we haven't gotten. We put together a letter with a list to request that additional information. And I believe that was sent. Oh my goodness, I don't even know what day it
Thursday.
is.
Last
Thursday.
Thursday, I think, Diane.
So we sent that over to them on Thursday. I haven't heard one way or the other whether we'll be seeing more information before the presentation or not.
Okay.
So for transparency's sake, I hope we're able to get more information. Ultimately, Janet is correct. You know, we have bottom line purview.
Our meeting was scheduled tonight to go to 9:30. It is 9:25. I would suggest that we not get into any new territory because that gives us 5 minutes. So, does anybody have any closing questions to any of our town staff?
I believe Terry has his hand up.
Okay. With no other questions, Terry, I know it's kind of out of the norm, but go ahead, please.
It's public comment, Tim.
Ah, and we have public comment. Good. Okay. Go ahead, Terry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was intending for public comment. I just wanted to mention, I hope Brian's still on the line. I did not mean to demean anyone's efforts nor anyone's earnestness in the committees that are going on in town right now. Hebron has an abundance of earnest people. I don't mean to denigrate this. It is good stuff. I believe the Open Space Land Acquisition Committee is an extremely efficient committee, but our town has many needs. And the irrevocable placement of land in the non-use category can hamstring us, and I believe we find ourselves in just such a situation. Just a comment on maintenance. I got a quote to take down a maple in the backyard that's suffering from dieback, and it came to $4,000. The area Jagger Lane open space right now has 5 huge wolf trees that are dead, and it's currently being farmed, which is really pretty neat. It's a corn crop. But that means that we have farmers underneath these trees that are falling down. Maintenance is a very real thing, and it's going to end up being a big expense. So when I urge a rethinking of our plans, I really think we need to bring in this whole concept of the town, the needs, business needs, the residential needs, the open space needs, reevaluate and make a plan to go forward. Spending money now at this time to increase the purchase of land to be put into irrevocable use, I think we could regret it in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the committees. I appreciate the time you give to me to give comment.
And thank you, sir. And thank you for hanging in there for this night. And we expect to see you at all the other ones too.
I got to get a pass on a different meeting, but I'm going to try and be there.
Okay. Thank you. It's, it's important, just throwing this out, it's important for the public to hear what's going on, to hear what we have to say, what the different entities that are presenting their budgets have to say. You know, it gets frustrating when you have the River East being the knowledge center, if you will, which is sad because you're hearing, many times one person's sometimes slanted opinion on something without actually hearing backup information. And, I know that, there's a lot of shots given towards us, and as I tell people, call the town hall. You can get the actual information rather than expecting it to be a letter to the editor. I just don't think that's a good way to get information out to the public per se. I'll just leave it that. Anybody else have anything? Tiffany, Mark? This is scary. It's almost too quiet. Andy, Donna, Elaine?
I think we're good for tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion
think-
for the Board of Finance to adjourn.
Second,
Thank you, Mel.
We need somebody to do it for us.
I'll
Come on,
move we
Tiffany.
adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you very
Have a good night,
much.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.